Have you ever sat quietly in the living room in the early hours of the morning, only to hear soft footsteps coming down the hallway? You check the time. It's exactly 2 a.m. Again. You glance up, and there they are. Your mom. Your dad. Your grandmother. Standing in the doorway, sleepy-eyed, maybe confused, maybe restless. You ask, "Are you okay?" And they smile faintly and say, "Yeah. I'm fine. Just couldn't sleep." But something about it doesn't sit right with you, does it? Because it's not just once. It's happening every night. Same time. Same sigh. Same silence. And deep down, in that quiet space between worry and denial, you start to wonder, what if it's not just aging? What if it means something more? What if that 2 a.m. wake-up call is their body, or their brain, trying to tell you something? You see, in elderly care, the signs aren't always loud. They don't always come in the form of pain or illness. Sometimes, it's just a shift in their routine. A change in behavior. Or a sleep pattern that seems off but doesn't look like an emergency. And because they don't complain, because they say they're fine, we chalk it up to just getting old. We pour them a glass of warm milk, tuck them back into bed, and never think about it again. But here's what most people don't realize: sleep changes in older adults aren't always harmless. They can be quiet warnings. Clues. Little whispers from the body that something deeper is going on. Sometimes it's anxiety. Sometimes it's loneliness. Sometimes it's their brain struggling to keep its rhythm. And sometimes, it's the very first sign of something much more serious. That 2 a.m. moment might look small, but in elderly care, small things often carry the biggest messages. And missing those messages could mean missing a chance to help. To comfort. To protect the people we love the most. So in this video, we're going to take a closer look, a gentle, thoughtful, honest look at 5 surprising reasons why so many older adults wake up at exactly 2 a.m., and what it could really mean for their health, their emotions, and their sleep. By the time we're done, you'll have a clearer understanding of these patterns. You'll learn how to respond in simple, meaningful ways. And you might even spot early warning signs, the kind that could help your loved one live longer, rest better, and feel less alone. So stick with me, okay? We're going to walk through this together. No medical jargon. No fearmongering. Just real, heartfelt insight into something so many families deal with, but hardly ever talk about. And if you've ever seen this happen, if you've ever watched someone wake up night after night, lost in the quiet, comment below and just type 2 a.m. again. Let's talk about it. Let's bring this out of the shadows. And if you care about making sure your loved ones age with dignity, peace, and better sleep, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to Elder Mature Moments, because this space is for you. For all of us who care deeply and want to do better. Now, let's find out what 2 a.m. is really trying to tell us. Let's start with one of the most overlooked, yet most common reasons older adults keep waking up at exactly 2 a.m. It's something subtle. Invisible. But powerful. It's the body's sleep-wake clock, slowly losing its rhythm. Take Mr. Thompson, for example. He's 72. Retired. Always kept a steady routine. Dinner at 6. Bed by 10. Used to sleep like a log. But lately, something's changed. His daughter started noticing a light flickering under his bedroom door at odd hours. One night she got up to check, and there he was, sitting in his armchair in the dark, wrapped in a blanket. No TV. No phone. Just, awake. She asked what was wrong. He smiled gently and said, "Nothing. I just wake up sometimes. That's all." But it wasn't just sometimes. It was every night. And always around 2 a.m. What was happening? Well, here's the thing most people don't know: melatonin, the natural hormone your brain produces to help you fall and stay asleep. It doesn't flow the same way as we age. In younger years, your body gets a nice healthy surge of melatonin when the sun goes down. It helps signal, it's time to wind down. But for older adults, that signal fades. The brain produces less melatonin, and it releases it less consistently. That means sleep becomes lighter, shorter, more fragile. And for some, like Mr. Thompson, that internal clock drifts. The body wakes up even though it's still dark outside. Even though the night isn't over. And that magic number? 2 a.m. That's often when melatonin levels bottom out. And the brain, confused by the silence, just wakes up. But here's the part that really matters: this isn't just part of getting old. Yes, it's common, but it's not untouchable. You can gently guide the body back into a healthier rhythm. And no, it doesn't mean loading up on sleeping pills. In fact, that often makes things worse. Instead, try this: start dimming the lights about an hour before bedtime. No bright screens. No overhead lights. This helps the brain understand, it's nighttime. In the morning, make sure your loved one gets exposure to natural sunlight. Even 20 minutes by a window or a short walk can help reset their internal clock. And yes, melatonin supplements can sometimes help. But not just any dose, and not without guidance. Talk to a doctor or pharmacist first. Start small. Observe. The goal is to support the body, not override it. You'd be surprised how much of a difference these tiny changes can make. Because in elderly care, small steps often bring the biggest peace. Now, sometimes, waking up at 2 a.m. isn't about the body at all. Sometimes, it's not about melatonin or light or hormones. Sometimes, it's the heart. Let's talk about that next. Now, let's go a little deeper. Because not all wake-ups come from the body. Some come from the heart. Let me tell you about Uncle Ray. He's 78. Strong. Stoic. The kind of man who always held it together. He raised a family, worked hard his whole life, never missed a Sunday dinner. But everything changed when Aunt Mabel passed away. At first, he said he was okay. Said he just needed time. But his daughter noticed something strange. Every night, almost without fail, Ray would wake up at 2 a.m. Sometimes he'd pace. Sometimes he'd sit by the window and just stare outside. Other nights, he'd quietly walk through the house, as if searching for something, or someone. He didn't talk about it. Didn't complain. But the sadness hung in the air like a heavy silence. What was happening? Here's what most people don't realize: emotional pain doesn't always cry out loud. In older adults, it often shows up quietly. And night is when it speaks the loudest. You see, during the day, there are distractions. Calls. TV. Neighbors. But at 2 a.m., there's only silence. And in that silence, the mind starts to wander. Memories return. Loneliness settles in. And if there's anxiety, especially the kind they don't talk about, it starts to bubble to the surface. Grief, depression, unresolved emotions, they don't always come in the form of tears. Sometimes, they come in the form of restless nights. Emotional distress often peaks during the night hours. That's not by accident. It's neurological. Cortisol, the body's stress hormone, follows a rhythm too. And for many older adults, especially those who are grieving, anxious, or feeling isolated, that rhythm becomes unsteady. Their brain gets stuck in a low-level state of alertness, making true, deep sleep harder to find, and even harder to hold on to. But here's where the real tragedy lies: we often overlook it. We think, oh, they're just light sleepers now. Or, they probably napped during the day. But that restless 2 a.m. moment? It might be grief in disguise. Or loneliness quietly asking for company. So what can you do? You don't need to fix everything. Sometimes, all they need is presence. A gentle word before bedtime. A routine they can look forward to. Try encouraging a bit of journaling in the evening. Let them unload their thoughts onto paper. It clears the mind. It soothes the soul. Create an environment of calm before bed. Soft lighting. Familiar music. Maybe a warm cup of chamomile tea. Even something as simple as sitting beside them for a few quiet minutes each night can do wonders. Let them know, without words, you're not alone. And if the sadness feels heavier, if they seem withdrawn, or you sense something deeper, don't hesitate to speak with a counselor or healthcare provider. Mental health support isn't just for the young. Our elders need it too, often more than anyone else. Because emotional pain in older adults is real. It just wears a quieter face. Still, emotional health is only part of the picture. The heart can stir the night. But so can the body, in ways that are harder to spot. Let's talk now about one of the most surprising, and often hidden, physical causes. Blood sugar. Now, there's another reason some older adults find themselves wide awake at 2 a.m. And this one catches a lot of families off guard. It happened with Grandma Elsie. She's 76. Sweet as ever. A little forgetful sometimes, but always had a warm hug ready. Diagnosed with type 2 diabetes a few years back. Her family started noticing she'd wake up suddenly, sometimes gasping, other times drenched in sweat. Always around the same time, 2 in the morning. At first, they thought it was just a hot flash. Then they wondered if it was a nightmare. Or maybe she just needed to use the bathroom. But the episodes kept happening. And her energy during the day started to drop. It wasn't until a routine doctor's visit, when her physician suggested checking her blood sugar during those early hours, that they discovered the real cause. Her blood sugar was crashing. Severely. And it was waking her up. You see, in older adults, especially those managing diabetes, the body becomes more sensitive to blood sugar swings. And those swings don't just happen during the day. They happen at night, too. Sometimes after dinner. Sometimes due to medications. Sometimes because they didn't eat enough before bed. When blood sugar dips too low while they sleep, what's called nocturnal hypoglycemia, the body panics. The brain sends out stress hormones, like adrenaline and cortisol, in a desperate attempt to stabilize things. And guess what happens? They wake up. Suddenly. Heart pounding. Sweating. Restless. Other times, it's the opposite. A sugar spike in the night, maybe from a late snack or poorly timed meds, can jolt the system and disrupt deep sleep. The body's trying to protect itself, but in doing so, it pulls them out of rest. And it usually happens around that familiar time. 2 a.m. The problem is, most families don't think to check blood sugar at night. They assume it's a fluke. Or they blame it on aging, hot flashes, or needing to pee. But this isn't just about discomfort, it's a health risk. So what can you do? First, start with consistency. Make sure your loved one is eating regular meals throughout the day. Skipping meals, or eating late, then going to bed immediately, can throw everything off balance. Before bedtime, it might help to have a small, protein-rich snack, like a handful of nuts or a piece of cheese with a cracker. Just enough to stabilize the system. But here's the key, don't guess. If your loved one is diabetic or even pre-diabetic, speak with their doctor about checking nighttime glucose levels. There are tools, like continuous glucose monitors, that can help track these patterns safely and easily. Sometimes, Just adjusting the timing of medications can make a huge difference. And if you ever notice them waking up with confusion, shakiness, or excessive sweating, don't ignore it. That could be the body signaling a glucose crash. Because in the world of elderly care, the body often speaks in whispers, especially at night. And if we listen closely, we can catch problems early, before they become emergencies. Let's not forget, these wake-ups aren't always emotional, and they aren't always hormonal. Sometimes, it's not the person. It's what they're taking. Let's talk now about one of the most commonly missed, and widely misunderstood, causes of 2 a.m. wakefulness in older adults: medications. Let's move to something that often hides in plain sight. A cause of 2 a.m. wake-ups that's sitting right there in the medicine cabinet. Let me tell you about Ms. Linda. She's 81. A retired teacher. Sharp mind. Loved her crossword puzzles and afternoon tea. She'd always been a good sleeper, until her doctor prescribed a new medication for her blood pressure. About a week after she started the pills, she noticed something odd. She was waking up every night, like clockwork. 2 a.m. Wide awake. Not anxious. Not uncomfortable. Just awake. Alert. Almost wired. At first, she thought it was a coincidence. Maybe she'd had too much tea. Maybe her nap had run too long. But as the night stretched on, she knew something wasn't right. Turns out, it wasn't a coincidence at all. It was the medication. You see, as we age, our bodies process medication differently. Slower metabolism. Changes in kidney and liver function. And greater sensitivity to even the smallest chemical shifts. Medications that worked fine years ago can suddenly cause problems, especially at night. Blood pressure meds, like beta blockers, can reduce melatonin production, making it harder to fall asleep, and even harder to stay asleep. Diuretics, the ones meant to control fluid and swelling, can lead to 2 a.m. bathroom trips that disrupt deep sleep. Antidepressants, thyroid meds, bronchodilators for asthma, even some pain relievers, can interfere with REM sleep, cause vivid dreams, or make sleep feel shallow and fragmented. And the thing is, many older adults are on multiple prescriptions. 5, 10, sometimes even more. It's called polypharmacy, and it's more common than you might think. Different drugs interacting, overlapping. Some intensifying side effects, others canceling each other out. And yet, when sleep problems pop up, we rarely think, could it be the meds? Instead, we blame aging. We assume it's stress. Or worse, we add another pill to help them sleep, without asking what's really going on underneath. That's the danger. Because sleep is delicate. And the wrong medication, or even just the wrong timing, can completely throw off the rhythm. So what can you do? Review medications regularly. Sit down with a doctor or a pharmacist, not just for refills, but for a real conversation about side effects. Ask how each one might be affecting sleep. Ask if any meds should be taken in the morning instead of at night. Ask if any combinations are causing unintended reactions. Sometimes, simply adjusting the schedule, taking a pill at 8 a.m. instead of 8 p.m., can make a world of difference. Also, keep a log. If your loved one starts a new prescription and suddenly their sleep changes, write it down. Track the time they wake. Track how they feel the next day. Bring those notes with you to their next appointment. Because when we take sleep seriously, we start asking better questions. And when we ask better questions, we often find better answers. Medications can help. But they can also hinder, especially when no one's paying attention. And that brings us to something that's harder to talk about. Something we often avoid, not because we don't care, but because deep down, we're scared to face it. Let's talk about one of the most silently feared reasons behind those 2 a.m. wake-ups. A reason that touches the brain. And changes everything. Now, this next reason. It's one of the hardest to talk about. Not because it's rare, but because deep down, many families already suspect it, and they're just not ready to face it. But the truth? Sometimes, those 2 a.m. wake-ups aren't just about hormones, emotions, or side effects. Sometimes, they're a whisper from the brain itself. A quiet signal that something deeper is shifting. Let me tell you about Aunt Miriam. She was always sharp. The storyteller of the family. She could recall every birthday, every family recipe, every face in every old photo. But one winter, her daughter started noticing small changes. Not memory loss. Not confusion. Not yet. Just strange sleep behavior. Every night, around 2 a.m., Miriam would wake up and quietly wander the house. Not frantic. Not afraid. But disoriented, opening cabinets, checking the front door, folding the same towel over and over in the laundry room. At first, they thought it was just restlessness. Maybe she missed her late husband. Maybe it was the cold weather. But the pattern didn't stop. And little by little, daytime memory slips started to follow. Names forgotten. Tasks repeated. Conversations lost in mid-sentence. A few months later, the diagnosis came. Early-stage Alzheimer's. What most people don't realize is this: cognitive decline doesn't always start with memory. Sometimes, the very first sign is how, and when, a person sleeps. In fact, sleep disturbances are among the earliest red flags in diseases like Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. There's even a name for part of it: sundowning. You may have heard of it. But here's what's less known: sundowning isn't limited to the early evening. In some cases, the brain's circadian rhythm, the internal clock that tells us when to wake and when to rest, starts to malfunction long before major cognitive symptoms appear. In the early hours, especially around 2 or 3 a.m., the brain may misfire. It can confuse time and space, pulling the person into a half-awake state that makes them feel they need to be somewhere else, even if they don't know where or why. This is not just restlessness. It's not just poor sleep. It's the early confusion of a brain struggling to regulate time, emotion, and memory, often long before the rest of the world sees it. But here's the danger: we wait. We wait until the signs are undeniable. We wait until keys are lost, people are forgotten, pots are left on the stove. We tell ourselves, it's just aging. She's just having trouble sleeping. Maybe it'll pass. But when it comes to dementia, early action is everything. So what can you do? Start with a sleep journal. It doesn't have to be fancy. Just keep a notebook by the bedside or kitchen table. Write down what time your loved one goes to bed, what time they wake, whether they seemed confused, agitated, or unusually alert at odd hours. Patterns will emerge. And those patterns can become powerful clues for doctors, allowing for earlier screenings, gentler interventions, and better support. If you're seeing 2 a.m. wake-ups paired with confusion, memory slips, or changes in personality, don't wait. Speak with a healthcare provider. Ask about cognitive assessments. There's no shame in asking. Only strength in knowing. Because while Alzheimer's and dementia are deeply challenging, they are not hopeless. With early intervention, routines can be adjusted, medications can help manage symptoms, and most importantly, families can prepare. They can adapt the home. They can offer reassurance. They can help their loved one live with dignity, instead of in fear. Yes, this topic is heavy. But ignoring it doesn't make it lighter. And being afraid to name it doesn't make it go away. What makes the difference is awareness, compassion, and the courage to pay attention, even to something as small as waking up at 2 a.m. Because behind that moment, there might be a brain quietly asking for help. And now that we've uncovered the hidden meanings behind this nightly wake-up call, from hormone shifts to emotional wounds, from blood sugar crashes to medication side effects, and yes, even cognitive decline, it's time we take a step back and talk about what this all means emotionally, for them, and for you. Let's talk now about the emotional toll this journey can take, and how, together, we can turn fear into strength. Watching someone you love wake up night after night, sometimes confused, sometimes silent, sometimes just staring out into the dark, can be one of the most helpless feelings in the world. You want to do something. You feel that something's wrong. But there's no fever. No injury. No obvious pain. Just those quiet, heavy footsteps. That flicker of light under their door at 2 a.m. That subtle pause in their eyes when you ask, "Is everything okay?" And they answer with a soft, "I'm fine." But deep down, you know, something's changed. And it's heartbreaking, because you care so deeply. And sometimes, caring comes with worry. With doubt. With guilt for not seeing it sooner. Or for wondering if you're doing enough. But let me tell you something important. Tonight, you're no longer in the dark. Because now, you're not just a witness to these strange patterns. You're someone who understands them. You now know that 2 a.m. awakenings aren't random. They're not meaningless. They're not just a part of aging to be brushed aside. They're signals. Some gentle. Some urgent. All worth noticing. They might be signs of a shifting body, a tired heart, a grieving mind, or a brain that's beginning to change. And that makes you powerful. Because knowledge like this, it turns worry into preparedness. It takes that sense of helplessness and replaces it with purpose. So if you've noticed this pattern in your loved one, don't wait. Check in. Ask them how they're feeling, physically and emotionally. Start a simple sleep log. Even just jotting down bedtime, wake time, and how they seemed afterward can unlock clues you'll be glad you found. Speak with a healthcare provider, no question is too small. Ask about their meds, their diet, their emotional health. Bring the data you've collected. These small actions may not feel heroic, but they're life-changing. Because they show your loved one something more powerful than any cure, that someone is paying attention. That someone sees them. And that someone cares enough to notice, even at 2 a.m. And listen, this journey, it's not easy. There will be moments of doubt. Moments where you question if you're doing it right. Moments when the nights feel too long and the days feel too heavy. But with love, with patience, with just enough knowledge to ask the right questions, you can make a difference. You can bring peace to the night again. And joy to the days that follow. You don't have to fix everything. You just have to care. And you're already doing that, just by being here. You are not alone in this. And neither are they. Now, let's take all that we've uncovered together. And turn it into action. Watching someone you love wake up night after night, sometimes confused, sometimes silent, sometimes just staring out into the dark, can be one of the most helpless feelings in the world. You want to do something. You feel that something's wrong. But there's no fever. No injury. No obvious pain. Just those quiet, heavy footsteps. That flicker of light under their door at 2 a.m. That subtle pause in their eyes when you ask, "Is everything okay?" And they answer with a soft, "I'm fine." But deep down, you know, something's changed. And it's heartbreaking, because you care so deeply. And sometimes, caring comes with worry. With doubt. With guilt for not seeing it sooner. Or for wondering if you're doing enough. But let me tell you something important. Tonight, you're no longer in the dark. Because now, you're not just a witness to these strange patterns. You're someone who understands them. You now know that 2 a.m. awakenings aren't random. They're not meaningless. They're not just a part of aging to be brushed aside. They're signals. Some gentle. Some urgent. All worth noticing. They might be signs of a shifting body, a tired heart, a grieving mind, or a brain that's beginning to change. And that makes you powerful. Because knowledge like this, it turns worry into preparedness. It takes that sense of helplessness and replaces it with purpose. So if you've noticed this pattern in your loved one, don't wait. Check in. Ask them how they're feeling, physically and emotionally. Start a simple sleep log. Even just jotting down bedtime, wake time, and how they seemed afterward can unlock clues you'll be glad you found. Speak with a healthcare provider, no question is too small. Ask about their meds, their diet, their emotional health. Bring the data you've collected. These small actions may not feel heroic, but they're life-changing. Because they show your loved one something more powerful than any cure, that someone is paying attention. That someone sees them. And that someone cares enough to notice, even at 2 a.m. And listen, this journey, it's not easy. There will be moments of doubt. Moments where you question if you're doing it right. Moments when the nights feel too long and the days feel too heavy. But with love, with patience, with just enough knowledge to ask the right questions, you can make a difference. You can bring peace to the night again. And joy to the days that follow. You don't have to fix everything. You just have to care. And you're already doing that, just by being here. You are not alone in this. And neither are they. Now, let's take all that we've uncovered together and turn it into action. Let's take a moment to gently pull everything together. Tonight, we explored something that many families quietly notice, but rarely talk about, those mysterious, repeated 2 a.m. wake-ups in our elderly loved ones. And now, you know they're not random. They're not meaningless. To recap, there are 5 possible reasons why this keeps happening. First, melatonin decline, which quietly disrupts the body's natural sleep-wake rhythm as we age. Second, emotional distress, grief, anxiety, or loneliness that often shows up at night when the world goes quiet. Third, blood sugar imbalances, where dips or spikes in glucose send stress signals to the brain and wake the body. Fourth, medication side effects or interactions, where even the most common prescriptions can interfere with peaceful sleep. And finally, early cognitive changes, like the first signs of Alzheimer's or dementia, when sleep disturbances become a whisper from the brain before the louder symptoms arrive. Each of these is real. Each deserves attention. And each one gives us the opportunity to act with love, patience, and wisdom. So now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you or someone you care about experienced these 2 a.m. wake-ups? Have you noticed a pattern? What helped? Or maybe, you still have questions. If you do, that's okay, this space is here for that too. Just scroll down and share your thoughts in the comments. Even a simple, yes, this is happening, can help another person feel less alone. Because chances are, if you're going through this, someone else is too. And if this video helped shine a light on something you've been wondering about, if it gave you insight, or even just comfort, I invite you to subscribe to Elder Mature Moments. This is where we come together to talk about the quiet signs, the overlooked symptoms, the little moments that matter more than most people realize. Here, we don't just talk about care. We talk about awareness, connection, dignity. So go ahead, click that subscribe button, and if this touched you, give the video a like. Not for numbers, but so that this message can reach someone else who needs to hear it tonight. And most of all, thank you. Thank you for being the kind of person who takes time to learn, to listen, and to care. You're doing something powerful just by being here. And your presence means more than you know. So stay compassionate. Stay curious. And stay hopeful. We've got more to explore together. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.